Hey y'all, it's Courtney here, and today I'm going to talk about my least favorite piece of gym equipment, and that is the Smith machine. For those of you who don't know what a Smith machine is, it's kind of like a squat rack, but the barbell is like attached to the machine and it slides up and down on this kind of like system, and you can easily rack it and unrack it because all you do is twist the bar, and it has all these little like safety spots all up and down the side of it. That's what a Smith machine is. A lot of people confuse it with a squat rack because you can squat in it, but I'm gonna tell you why you shouldn't. So my first point is all about safety. A lot of people will say that, they use the Smith machine because it's safer, especially if you're lifting by yourself, you don't have a spotter, but that's not 100% true. So if you look at basically any video, if you Google or YouTube anything, you can find someone failing horribly on the Smith machine, just like you can find them failing horribly on any other piece of equipment. It's not inherently more safe because you have those spotting capabilities. It's not inherently safer just because you have the ability to rack it instantly. There's people who fail on the Smith machine just as much as they fail doing free weights. And as a powerlifter coming from, seeing things like Raw Nationals, Worlds, and all the other powerlifting competitions, we always have these debates about if a monolift is safer than free weights. Can you really appropriately spot someone squatting 1,000 pounds? So safety is a concern for people doing free weights, for people doing the Smith machine, but people failing in the Smith machine happen just as commonly as people failing outside the Smith machine. So safety isn't really an accurate statement to make because there's no piece of equipment that is 100% safe. If you are using something inappropriately, or even if you're using it appropriately, shit happens, you can fail, it's not any safer. The second point is the point that a lot of people bring up, and that's the unnatural movement that the Smith machine puts you in can increase your pain issues. So a lot of people will, say like their knees hurt from using the Smith machine. There's a few different reasons for that. First of all, you've got the increase in shear across your knee, because if you look at someone who is on the Smith machine, they are not squatting the same way as someone with free weights. They're like, their feet are naturally in front of them and they're like leaning back into like the bar, and it creates this like wide gap where they're just like leaning back. So it doesn't mimic natural movement at all, which is another reason people are against the Smith machine. But you can't really get underneath the bar because of the way that it moves. It just moves straight up and down. And people will argue that, yeah, the ideal squat, you have a pretty straight bar path, but it's not 100% straight. So you're forcing yourself into these unnatural movements. When you lean back like that, you actually decrease your hip extension. So like you're not getting your hamstring recruitment like you usually do. So it can lend to just as many injuries, increased pain just because of the way that you're loading your joints, just as much as any other equipment, and actually more so because you're in these unnatural positions. Watch people, especially those who max out on the Smith machine, they're gonna have a lot more low back rounding just because of the way that they're positioned, because there's no real good way to position yourself for the squat using the Smith machine. The next point I want to make is actually coming from more scientific studies, and that's that you're decreasing your muscle recruitment when you're using the Smith machine. The two examples I'm going to use are two studies that I found, one comparing like a free weight squat to a Smith machine squat, and another comparing like dumbbell bench press to a Smith machine bench press. And they found that both of those actually, you had decreased muscle recruitment in the muscles working, as much as 40% less in the squat. I know I talked a little bit about how if you lean back, you're decreasing your hamstring recruitment. It's an issue by far and wide. I linked the studies in the box below so that you can actually read them yourselves, but really compelling evidence that you're decreasing your actual muscle recruitment. The other thing is a lot of people will argue that since you're not mimicking natural movements, you're decreasing your stabilizers, so those secondary accessory muscles that come in to help you with like your balance. It can exacerbate underlying unilateral issues, which I think a barbell squat can too, because you're going to compensate. But the point is, there are a lot of studies out there that are showing that your muscle recruitment is actually less. And as someone who, if you're taking the time to go to the gym, you're taking the time to do this exercise movement, wouldn't you want the most out of it? why would I want to waste my time doing Smith machine squats with, less muscle recruitment, less muscle stimulus than just doing a free weight movement? And the last point I want to make is there's really no excuse to just stick to the Smith machine. If you're talking about safety, if you're talking about strength, if you're talking about basically anything, there can be really compelling arguments made to using other types of exercises. You don't have to squat in the Smith machine. You don't even have to use a barbell to squat. You can use things like free weights. There's goblet squats where you hold, a kettlebell in front of you or even a barbell. There's body weight squats. There's TRX squats. There's just so many different ways that you can squat or bench or deadlift or overhead press, because those are the 4 movements that have really been studied in terms of the decreased muscle usage and utilization and recruitment in using the Smith machine versus free weights. There's just so many variations to these exercises that are going to target your muscles more effectively. That may actually be safer, especially if you're talking from like a TRX standpoint, or really any standpoint. So there's really no reason to use the Smith machine for those movements. I don't really have compelling evidence for things like lunges because that hasn't really been sussed out yet. But if you are doing a free weight lunge and you're comparing it to your lunges in the Smith machine and you find that you're using different form, then some of these points may have crossovers. I see a lot of different exercises done in the Smith machine that are really unconventional. If you like them, you feel like they're working for you, there's no reason why you should stop, especially if you're not experiencing any pain from them. Just make sure that you're researching to make sure that it's not just some exercise some YouTuber created to make more people view their channel, and that it truly is an effective exercise for utilizing the muscles that you think you're utilizing. That's all I have for this video. Tune in next week or the week after, who knows, it's the holidays, it's busy, for more information.